the tour. I mean, you're touring, and you're playing. I think the Relayer album in its entirety. Is that right? It's always intriguing. I was wondering, uh, when you re-engage with material like that, does it feel fresh when you play it, or are you always feeling that you perhaps like to put some of the newer stuff in? I mean, as a band, do you ever feel you're kind of at war with your own legacy?
Well, not really, because we can pick and choose what we want to play,
Sure.
and when we do an album series tour like we were planning in 2020, and we picked Relayer because it was the one, half the album had not ever been played on stage since like 1977. So it
Right.
wasn't that it was run of the mill stuff like if we play Close to the Edge, we've been playing that loads over the years. We play the whole
Yeah.
album. We could play it most probably tomorrow because that one is so run into our blood. But
Yeah.
so what we did about Relayer was we first of all made sure that in 2019 we were playing Gates of Delirium, which is the big piece, the
Yeah.
big feature
Yeah.
piece. And we were, getting ready to practice the other side, which is, Sound Chaser and To Be Over. And so, no, there's a real challenge there. It really is a challenge, and it's exciting. Yeah, you've got to put together things. You've got to get practice. And we all insist that we do homework, so everybody comes to the rehearsal when it eventually is when we eventually get back on tour. A date comes, which should be April 11 in Portugal, but one doesn't want to hold the breath yet.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
hope that's true. So yeah, it's beautiful, particularly playing music like when we did. I remember when we started the album tour, the first one had Going for the One in it. And, that was a combination of different songs that was fairly challenging to learn. They were
Yeah.
quite different sorts of songs. I mean, from Turn of the Century,
Yeah.
which comes after Going for the One. They're very extreme. But it's really is enjoyable playing the classic material. I mean, because it's classic. I mean, it's not like it's a pop hit, which
No.
I have some respect for many pop hits. But it's not pop music. It's actually, as we talked earlier, prog. But it's not. It's not something I've ever been shy about, particularly because I'm part of the process that chooses what we feature. And obviously, if somebody, you could mention a song, and I might say, "Oh no, I don't want to play that."
Yeah.
But there aren't any, and certainly I like playing early music before I joined the band, from the
Sure.
Peter Banks guitar work
Yeah.
era, and we've done Astral Traveler. In fact, the other tour we were doing Survival as we opened,
Okay.
So
Okay.
we like to look at the overall things. We don't have any sort of paranoias about it. Some
No.
albums are less fluid, like Tomatoes, a very hard album to work. We
Right.
most probably will never play that as an album series because we just got. Just can't make sense of how we're going to do all this stuff that's on there, and it's not very live. It was somewhat difficult to play live on stage as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it didn't get into the sort of more fluid and well loved stage presence because we didn't play it.
Right. Okay. I've just one last question, really. It's a question that's been sent to me by one of my subscribers, and I'll just read it to you, really. I was wondering if Steve could explain a little bit about the recording of the song Sound Chaser. It's one of my all-time favorites of Yes. Its complexity has always amazed me.
Yeah, well, I mean, back in those days, we had gone through the process of sitting in a room, for 3 weeks or so, and saying, "What have you got? Have you got something?" Or John and I had written something, for that we had teamed up on. We'd already teamed up on To Be Over, so that is credited to Anderson House song because it is. So basically, when we started that album, we were working on To Be Over, and we could see some shape. And then Gates of Delirium was very much something John was inspiring us to reach this sort of height, and have this sort of battle scene, and very complicated. But Sound Chaser was really much more angular and rock, almost punkish in its approach to break rules rapidly. So, it's at a high tempo, and there's a lot of notes going on. And there's a lot of racing about, and there's a lot of unison bass and guitar work, which is all great fun. So I guess the well, for me as a guitarist, the most revolutionary part of that song, and it is pretty revolutionary, is when they stop playing and I go da 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 da, you know, and I start into this sort of flamenco idea of a rock guitar, you know, Telecaster sort of burning on other things. But what's nice is that we developed that sort of rather blatant crashy kind of approach, and then suddenly we get more lilting, and you know, the bass and the keyboard comes back in, and I start volume pedaling the guitar. So basically the song has got very great contrast, and one of the moments I like most is when the guitar break is over and you've had all this kind of different stuff that I'm up to, and John comes in, and I wrote the chords to the back of those, the way that that tune was good. John wanted to sing the song again, but didn't want the same chords. So I said, fine, I'll get some new chords. And I dreamed up the chords. And I think that's a classic moment. John starts singing, there's just a guitar and an electric guitar with this volume pedal. So the chords keep swelling out. And that to me, then we're throwing back into the kitchen sink and just, but as far as the actual recording, yeah, it was recorded in Chris's house in Virginia Water in the basement with Eddie Oppert's equipment. And it was kind of like steamy and kind of crowded, and, you know, it was noisy, and it was kind of like chaotic, but that wasn't too unusual with Yes. But it was quite like that, you know. The great thing, Chris was sort of more on time because we were working at his house. He only had to come downstairs. So it was wonderfully explorative, you know. It was a super time. After Close to the Edge and Tales from Topographic Oceans, you know, where else could we go but further, you know? And I think really with Gates and To Be Over, what I think is nice about the balance that To Be Over did, it's much more of a pretty, like on a You and I, it's more like a song that's always pleasant to listen to. It's always kind of snappy and bright. So it's got some wonderful, wonderful moods in it. But Sound Chaser, going back to your writer request, is revered by Yes members. There's very few of us that can play that song or sing it, you know. So there's only a molecule or so of Yes members who could actually play it, because
you shot yourself in the foot with that one then, really.
Well, I was very pleased that I got one easy ride was when I got to learning that guitar solo, which I'd have to update, you know, and refresh all my twiddly different notes. But when I first set, okay, so how much of this do I know? What's going on? So I got there, and actually some of it started to come back. I thought, thank God, you know, I did play this. It was my, you know, it was my part. But I was delighted to find that I could actually play it. That's the only time I actually said to the guys, we can do Relayer, because I said to them, until I've really checked that song, I wouldn't want to, you know, agree to it and then say, well, I don't. So it does come back, and it's harder for Jeff and Billy and everybody. But Billy knows lots of it. Funny enough, Billy knows a mass of it already. You know.
Anyway, it just leaves me to say I want to wish you the very best of luck with this new album and the tour. And thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me.
All right, it's been a pleasure. It's been very nice. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so long. Take it easy.
Bye-bye.